Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Canyon. Welcome back to another installment in the series we call Breakdowns, which I made like 8 of these before I remembered that I should probably make a playlist for it. There's a playlist now. You can see the Breakdowns playlist. Today, we're gonna do the 10 Pro Bros. So this is a threefer. We're gonna do a threefer because I don't really like the 10 Pro that much. Not compared to, say, the VRD. And as such, we've got 4 or 5 rigs here that are loosely VRDs. Like, there might be a VFD in it, or they're on F10s or F10Ps or something. But these are 10 Pros by my loose definition of what constitutes a 10 Pro. There are 3 of them here, and they are all different in some way or another. Rainbird, Bluebird, Terence, because Terence from the mobile game Angry Birds is the fat red bird, and he got that name because when we got this, the Ford, the Ranger XL2, look, it's really fat. I think it's the fattest tucked body. Like, it is still the widest of the tucked bodies. It is wider, certainly. I mean, look at this measurement, and then look at this. It's 1.5 inches wider at the rump. We began with Rainbird, and Rainbird is still, in my approximation, though the giant gearbox has been deleted, it is still, in my estimation, a 10 Pro. These are 10 Pro axles, 10 Pro rails. He has had basically every measure done to remove weight, and then one of those measures was immediately ejected in order to put a Fusion in it. Would I prefer to have an Outrunner in it? I mean, most likely, yeah. And he ran a Fusion Mini 16 for a while. They have what I would call a cousin, Banshee. Banshee, while being on 10 Pro rails, I can't really regard as a 10 Pro because it has 10 Pro rails and the 10 Pro FMM here, this plastic one, and nothing else from a 10 Pro at all. No axles, no plastics, no spacers, no nothing. Not even, maybe body mounts? He might have 2 of the body mounts from a 10 Pro, but he's got a little bit of 10 Pro geometry, but not a lot. This guy, despite ejecting the ultra heavy gearbox, which is in both of these guys, they both feature the stock gearbox. This gentleman is probably the heaviest of the 3, despite being straight axle, by courtesy of being CMS and having all the plastics and all the bits and all the bobs that go into that. So Rainbird was kind of a thought experiment, the first 10 Pro that I built up. And I got into this idea of, if we eject this, which I got to get a big enough ruler out. If you measure from the front of the spur to the back of the bracket, it is 180 millimeters long. This gearbox is 7 inches long. Simply by ejecting that gearbox and removing the switchable overdrive, you will shave, usually, it's nearly 3/4 of a pound. It's like between 10 and 12 ounces, depending on what you replace it with. And as I said, we had made every effort to reduce weight on this gentleman that was possible. And we got him to 1,888 grams, despite the fact that with his full brassed out front axle, he had a 500 gram front axle. So a 500 gram axle on a 2,000 gram vehicle. Rainbird never has any issues with sprung versus unsprung weight. He runs the bottom half of the hot dog bun that is the 10 Pro body, and it is additionally cut up even further. This body weighs about 50 grams, I want to say, with the foam on it to try to quiet it down a little bit. Traxxas 2660s. A lot of stock componentry just cut down. I did have to manufacture a skid so that I could mount that Creeper T running off of the stock front motor mount. AGFRC SA66, the 35 kg version, which is excellent. Double cardons in the front axle. Upgrade, is it Upgrade RC? Upgrade RC, double cardons. And 35 kg is more than enough because these are, I think he's got dual stage in the front and single stage in the rear because he's so light that when he would turn, he would put enough power down that the tires would just smear over and he would get super inaccurate. In the fleet, I am not sure that there is another rig that runs a dual stage in the front and a single stage in the rear. He might be the only one. But as he sits now in full RTR configuration with an 850 battery, he weighs 2,200 grams when he's out on the course, which at the time was far and away like the lightest thing in the fleet. And now we have a number of rigs that are challenging that. But 2,200 grams with, again, a 500, I think it's 500 plus gram front axle. And bona fide, real deal, Vanquish wheels on there. It tickles me every time I look at the Vanquish wheels with the Injora S4 comp pens mounted to it. The chassis is carved up. The body is carved up. We cut the chassis down basically as much as we could get it to where there's just nothing exposed out in the back. And he has another one of the only rigs in the fleet to run rear knuckle weights. Most do not. And every time I think of the weight savings, we would cut, I would say probably 2 ounces, probably another 60 to 80 grams going to an outrunner. But then realistically, to go to an outrunner, you have to change the motor mounting plate to a metal one, and you have to change it to a specific metal one because none of these would really do it. There's a lip. There's a lip on that motor plate. So you can see the motor kind of goes into that little alcove there. The only way to get an outrunner in there is to have the wires coming out either sideways or straight down. And then the wires from that outrunner just interfere with everything else. Oh no. Furatech 2-in-1. Furatech 2-in-1 would be perfect for this. But he is running a 1200 kV. So also getting the kV down low enough to keep him non-rowdy. The 3000 kV experiment with the Mini 16 was very short-lived because we could not generate enough gear reduction to slow him down. He was like he just zipped everywhere. So this was one of those instances where we added weight, obviously, by going to a Fusion 1200, but every behavior got better because it is so much easier to control, that Fusion 1200. So then we moved on to the second one, which is on the 10 Pro Portal. One of my favorite things. EcoPower WP 832 back there. Amazon Chavtex Fusion 1800. Goop RC. I knew I had one of the Goop 9 kilogram micros. I just could not remember where. Hunks on, those are definitely Canyon Custom Softs. This is actually Zoku Pro. Those are the Zoku rails. When he first, and I made that little carve out right there so that I could get to the screw. And a bunch of pieces, like the silver alloy pieces were very, very inexpensive on Amazon, and we just leaned heavy into the blue and silver theme. And honestly, if you're considering a chassis, it's almost worth it to get the Zoku Pro rails just to get those sliders, because the stock Zoku slider, the stock 10 Pro sliders are awful. They're disgusting, and they're huge, and they don't look good, and these do. I want to say, yes, Mias aluminum motor plate up there, and because we're on an 1800, and because we've got the reduction of the portals and the full-blown reduction, there's a reason, there's absolutely a reason that the 10 Pro is not sold in a kit and or RTR version as a portal, because you're at like something like 80 to 1 in stock configuration, which is that's a tremendous amount of mechanical advantage. So as you can see, very small spur gear and very big pinion, relatively speaking. We're getting into the neighborhood of belt drives with that amount of reduction. And when I built this, I cheated it skid forward when we built Bluebird, because what we did is we moved the front axle back and then we moved the rear axle back. So the link differential, okay, so this is a 10 Pro. So look at this from the bottom and see this length and then that length. And then this is also a 10 Pro, and look at that length and that length. So I think I took about 10 millimeters out in the front here, and I added 15 to 20 in the back, because if you notice where this goes, look at the nut, and then look at where this bracketry is, right? We've got this big open space of nothing, and we do not have that open space of nothing here. The nut is overhanging. And we did this simply by pulling the axle back and then pushing that axle back. So aside from the basics of straight axle versus portal, big whomper of a gearbox versus the very small one, these drive very differently. And you will also note he's got nothing. There's no knuckle weight. There's no weight out there at all. Those are completely stock knuckles in the front. And he drives pretty much fine. These are trials, so you know that they don't have... Is that a custom? Or is it 3D printed? Pinching this now, it kind of feels 3D printed. That's 3D printed. There's no weighted ring for a trial. You have the weight that you have. And then the third of the brothers, Terence, the fat red bird, again, Zoku chassis, but all stock plastics and effectively kit axles, though he does have weights in the front. They look like Injoras. Probably Injora weights in the front. He's got the shocks from the Wizard. He's got Voodoos. He's got Wizard shocks. And they are fantastic on Terrans. I wanted a little bit more travel. So I went with modified GTS on my Wizard, because I think I prefer that little bit of an extra amount of travel. He is also sporting the stock gearbox, though it has been modified up front to run an element slipper or associated slipper, depending on how you like to look at it, and chassis mounted steering, because we had to have a 10 Pro with chassis mounted steering, because we want to try every possible flavor. The only flavor we don't have is chassis mounted steering and portals. Now, there is a potential problem here, which is if you give me the controllers and I drive these two, if I drive blue and red back to back, I strongly prefer the blue one. I don't like this gearbox with the straight axles. And the 10 Pro straight is definitely in my top 5 axles, whether it be the straight or the portal. Did I say 10 Pro straight? The 10 Pro axle in either configuration is one of my favorite axles. There is something about, even on the 1200, I will take this one over this one, and I will also take this one over this one. Do you see where we have a problem? I feel like this guy needs something done about the gearbox situation. Handling-wise, he does pretty great. But this wise, the way that feels, 1200, this one feels very, very different in throttle response compared to this one. There's nothing objectively wrong with it. It is smooth. They are both smooth. There's a little bit of something, and we have definitely torn whole vehicles down when that little bit of a something just isn't. It's got to be just so, and he is constantly in a state of flux. Like, what need be done to make it do the thing that I want to see it do? And the shortest and most obvious answer. And every time I put in an order at A-Main, there's at least one order going in from here to A-Main every month. And it's the pins. There are these long threaded pins that go into here. Hold these in place. So you can take these off and then the pins are still there. You remove those pins. They're big, long threaded pins. And when I say big, long threaded pins, I mean it. They look like this. 4 millimeter and then like a 20 millimeter shaft there that goes through the link. And they're always on, I think they ship directly from Axial. So every time I order from A-Main, even though I don't need the stuff urgently, it's like, well, you're going to have to wait 5 to 6 days for your order to ship so we can get those. Like they have to order them in to get them. And I'm like, ugh. So I made his. I took big set screws and I turned them down on a lathe to fit his because I had to make the skid. And realistically, I mean, I don't know. There's probably an option out there at this point because with the 10 Pro gearbox, see these little screws that go right here? The skid is the bottom of the gearbox, so it's not flat. It's all like contoured and rounded and stuff, and it has screw holes in it. So if I want to change this guy's skid out, because I will not do a Creeper T, I will do something else. We don't have a center gearbox 10 Pro, so he, despite how, look how tall the chassis rails are. Chassis rails are real tall. So fitment is going to be a big question mark until I try to actually fit it. And I feel like it's probably inevitable that Terence will be giving up that gearbox because the versatility, how useful that thing is borderline at best. I truly enjoy the big 7-inch long, 180 millimeter dumb, overwrought 10 Pro gearbox. All that big, because don't forget, in this configuration, it's not an FMM. They're attached. These are rigid bars that attach this plate to this gearbox. And then the gearbox bolts there and then up here. So it's just one big gearbox. This is the only guy here that actually has an FMM. This and this are not attached. They're completely separate pieces. So I enjoy it in this one because the portals give so much reduction. Like I said, around 80 to 1, that I run an 824. I believe I run an 824 up here. I have 20%. So when this is in 0, we have 20% overdrive. And then when you shift this, you have 60% overdrive. And 60% overdrive is 6/10 dig. And it's pretty good. Or so I think. Because this guy doesn't have dig. He's got overdrive, selectable overdrive. And this guy has selectable overdrive. And I feel like, oh, he's so heavy comparatively. I feel like this is the guy that's going to end up with dig. Like we will ditch the whole FMM. We will just go to a center mounted gearbox with dig on it. Potentially. Because I want to see a 10 Pro with dig on it. I want to see how the tires and the geometry and all that stuff cooperate. So that is all but inevitable. I feel that we will get inside this guy and we will make him do the thing that we want to see him do. Like I said, handling wise, they're all pretty great. Trigger feel wise, these two are very close. This one's real. It's a little windy. Oh, the lights just flickered. He's a little snappy. This guy is very solid and determined. Despite being essentially the same thing, same geometry, same axles, same all that stuff, they're handling-wise very different. And this guy is more very different still. So if I can just get him to sing as sweet of a song as these two do. And I neglected to mention ProTech 370 TBL Black, taking care of steering duties there. Enjora 2065 for the switcher instead of the Goop RC 9kg. And the true and bona fide Trial to remove this tire. You have to remove all of these screws, and then that ring comes off, and then the whole wheel goes at the back. These are actual bead locks. I have 2 sets of these, and these are unquestionable. These are commitment wheels, and those are stock single-stage foams in there, and they work just fine. The 10 Pro Bros, Rainbird, Bluebird, and the big fat red bird, Terence, are really inside my system, which is 10 Pro, 10 Pro, 10 Pro. And if I handed you the controllers one at a time and you drove them, they are radically different to the point where they almost don't do anything the same. I like a 10 Pro gearbox paired with portals so I can go 2060. I'm not as hot on the 10 Pro portals in this because it always feels like you're going too fast. There is more gear reduction in that than there is in that. And that weighs an ounce, and that weighs 3/4 of a pound. So sometimes, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. And that's where we are. It's summed on any given day. It does bother me that he's not on comp pins. There are comp pins in the drawer. These are also, they're for bumpers, like for real cars. And I don't know how I feel about them still. Like, there is a kind of an elegance, and they work. They allow the body to rock. So when tires come up and get in the body, they just kind of push the body out of the way. It's a pretty clean operation. It's certainly cleaner than something like this. But this is a tough color cliffhanger painted on the outside. So this barely weighs any more than this. I think fleet-wide of a non-cab, this is certainly the lightest body because there's basically nothing left of it. And the Pro Bros are as similarly different as one could possibly try to get them. And that, I wouldn't have it any other way. We will probably end up, like I say, we've got Banshee here, who I would say a cousin. He's not one of the 10 Pro brothers, but I feel we might end up with one more 10 Pro based, like 10 Pro axles, 10 Pro chassis, maybe the 10 Pro gearbox, maybe 10 Pro gearbox on TRX4 axles. I don't know. How would that? That's a lot of gear reduction. That would be a real lot of gear reduction. Probably closing in around 100 to 1. So, there you go. If you have a 10 Pro question, or a question of any kind, comment section below. Thank you so much for joining us here today, everybody. Here in the canyon, a little bit of a breakdown. 3-in-1. 3-in-1. And I did it in about the same amount of time that I do one. So maybe this is a more efficient way to do it. Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And in between now and then, please, one and all, do your very best. Have a good run. But we'll see you again here in the canyon with this or some other thing. Tune in to find out.